lead pesticide investigator. So I'm one of those guys you really don't want to see most days, because I'm the enforcement guys. Yeah, so I have today 10 investigators that work for me that we do all of the inspections and complaint follow-ups for pesticides statewide. And I get to coordinate all of that. My job is typically on the phone and doing a lot of talking with my investigators, helping them build their case and assigning their workload. And the reason you get to see my lovely face today instead of Linda's is because she had the great displeasure of having a tree fall on her house sometime in December down in Coquille. And her contractor who's trying to fix it called her Monday and said, Linda, I need you here because if we don't make certain decisions, it's going to extend the rebuild a couple of months because of contractor availability. So she came scurrying over to me and said, Mikey, can you do this? So we shall work our way through this. There's lots of stuff that's happened, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of this before. But the big one is the worker protection standard updates. There are some fairly significant changes that EPA is talking about. I've been told by Oregon OSHA that it's not quite as significant for us in Oregon because Oregon OSHA has already forced you guys to do some of this anyway. But we'll kind of go through all this and give you an idea. The worst part is this goes into effect January 2017, and EPA doesn't have all the answers yet. When have we ever heard that before, right? So we are muddling through this, and we're trying to get the information out to you all as we get it. We'll get it out, and we'll do some pretty serious training between ODA and Oregon OSHA at least this fall sometime, so that you guys have something to really go on. And you can plan. So, new requirements. Who's responsible for providing the protections in the rule? Obviously, you guys, anybody that's producing a crop, or any commercial pesticide handler who's got employees. Who's protected? Farm workers, the handlers, and anybody else that's out there on the site during the job. So if I show up, then I'm protected by that. And by the way, if you got a question, throw it up.
Got a question, Mike.
Yeah.
Spot sprayers, backpack sprayers and Roundup. 20 plus years ago, I went to a federal trainer program. And so we've been trying to comply with people that are doing spot spraying. What type of a short of a private pesticide applicator's license, what kind of training do they need or certifications do they need in order to run a backpack sprayer with Roundup?
So are these employees or is this a contract?
Employees.
Employees. They are going to need the full-up training for worker protection before they can go out and put a backpack on and go.
So what is that, where do they get that training?
That's one of the things they're still working on. I'm sorry, that's
Okay.
I'll answer. You're going to be able to, they have certifications to give the training still. There are hopefully going to be some third parties.
We don't see that advertising in our publications, training the trainer.
That's because it's not out there yet.
Okay, well, we did it 20 years ago, and
Right.
when we call in to try and be compliant, they said, well, if you have that train the trainer, then you can train your employees yourself. Now, is that proper information that's been given out by our agencies, or how do we comply?
Yeah, we'll have some of that a little bit farther. Let's keep
Okay.
talking about this as we go, because the answer is it's not going to be easy this time around. They've put some stuff in place that's going to make it a little bit more difficult.
My name is Yosarian, and so I'm expecting a catch 22. Okay?
Okay, I'm going to probably give you several. Okay, so the short of this, 14 months after the November 2nd Federal Register notice is, that's January 2017 when this goes into effect. But, you know, the federal government, we got to make it difficult. New versus old. Currently, you've got 5 days to get those guys trained up, right? Under the new, no, before they go out. So the first thing you gotta do with an employee, before they hit the field, they've gotta get this training. If they're gonna be any place where pesticide has been used or an REI has been in effect in the last 30 days. So does that mean basically any place on the farm, they've gotta have training before they go out, right? That's the way I read that. Handlers, certified applicators, state, tribal, federal approved trainers, and persons completing an approved training course can do this training. Nope, they didn't say anything over here. Okay, so we don't have a good answer for you yet. You gotta keep records of it for 2 years. And then you gotta give the worker the card or a record of the training if they leave you. Come on in. Current provision, you got to display application-specific equipment or information at the central location, right? Before the application occurs, or if there's no handlers on the day of that, you got to do it before they come out. And you got to keep it posted. There is no record keeping. Under the new provision, you've got to include the safety data sheet at the central location as well as the application information. It's got to be up within 24 hours of the end of the application or before the workers enter the treated area. You got to keep both up for 30 days, and you got to keep that record for 2 years after the REI is over. Yes, sir.
Does the applicator guy out in the field, does he have to have the card on him or just posted at the site?
Which
Or,
card?
you know, the training.
The training card is with him?
Yeah.
Now, as long as you guys have that record somewhere on the farm, that's okay. You're just not gonna have to have it on this person. So currently, you post if you're required to by the label. You give oral REI notification otherwise, unless you're in a greenhouse. It hasn't changed that significantly. The biggest thing is if the REI is greater than 48 hours, and I am scratching my head, I don't know of too many that are. Soil fumigants. Diazinon, is it beyond 48 hours now?
New labels 5 days.
Okay, so if you've got diazinon that you're putting out, then you have to post, or if it's 4 hours in the greenhouse, otherwise it's the normal posting or oral notification. And I would imagine now that they've put that 48 hours on there, we'll see more REIs going up there, especially for the old OPs. Currently, you've got to provide application information on treated areas that the handler may be in. So who's a handler?
Guy in the field.
Guy in the field that's working with the product, right? So if they're going to be in a field or within a quarter mile of a field, you've got to give them the application equipment information, and then change them before give them information on the changes before the application takes place. Under the new one, you've still got to give them the information if they're going to be within a quarter mile. You got to notify them before the application begins if certain changes, and they haven't said what certain changes are yet. So we'll figure that out, and within 2 hours of the end of the application. So things have changed a little bit, but not a lot yet. Currently, we have no minimum age, so you can hire all the high school kids you want. Under this, it's 18 years old. The central location's got to have the safety sheet posted. Currently, under the new, yes?
How do they define immediate family?
Immediate family is parents, you and your spouse, children. So nephew doesn't count. Yeah, exactly. You guys were talking about slave labor as students earlier, I know. So under the new, if you've got a site away from the central posting site where you're going to have maybe more than 11 employees at a given time, then especially around the decontamination site, you've got to have this sign as well, this type of sign, so that they know what's there. And currently, if you get somebody that's sick, you got to take them to the medical, or get them there somehow. You're supposed to give them product information, the antidote information, first aid, circumstances of how that happened, right? Under the new, take the safety data sheet, product information, and then the circumstances of the exposure. What's the best way to get the product information to the medical provider? Take the label. Because can you remember that it's Monsanto Roundup EPA registration number 524124? When you got somebody that's sick or hurt? No. Just grab the label or grab the jug, I don't care. Take it in there so they've got it. And the only reason I remember some of those numbers is because I deal with them every day.
OSHA regulations require we have a book that has all of the SDSs in it.
Well, OSHA's got that, OSHA's got that requirement.
That person when you go to the hospital, and available to you.
Yep.
Mike, we've been going round and round on this as far as availability,
Mm-hmm.
and that you have to have a printed copy. Okay, we've had incidents in the past where we take the sheets into the emergency medical people or the fire department, and they say, we've already looked it up online, we don't believe anything that we give you, we're gonna do it ourselves. We called the Poison Control Center, we've called the ODA, we've called OSHA, so we're not gonna take any information from you because it's irrelevant and we don't trust what you give us anyway. So when we have this on our site, can we have it electronically available through a computer rather than having a paper copy as a duplicate that nobody ever uses?
So here's the answer that OSHA has given many times in front of me for that. As long as that is readily available any given time that an emergency may happen, to include a power outage, an outage of the internet. I mean, if all the things happen all at once, and then we don't have access to that via electronics, how are you going to deal with it? And so, you know, the way I always interpret that is, or OSHA would prefer that you have it hard copy someplace readily available. So, a really good question to ask OSHA consultation is, if I have paper backup binder someplace on the farm that we can get to, and I'm using mostly electronics, is that adequate? Because I've got a paper backup in case for some reason you can't get in there. You know, because every now and again, one of your workers won't have a phone that they can get an SDS with, or something like that. But that's a good question to ask them. And I'll try to ask them. I've got a big meeting with OSHA next week, so I'll try to ask that question as well.
Most of our state agencies that we go to tell us, well, we can print it out for you, but you know it's available online.
Exactly.
You know, that's the response that we get from most of our state or federal agencies.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
go online to this website and you find it.
But OSHA is really particular. They want that available.
And it's in English, not Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is the biggest contention of this whole system, this update right now, the application exclusion zone. So currently, applicators, workers, and all are prohibited from being in the treated area from farms and forests or in the nursery or immediately adjacent to treated areas on the nursery. The revision is talking about establishing an area around the application equipment that nobody can be in. You've got to keep keep workers and other persons out of that AEZ within that boundary that they give you, and I'll give you that here in a second. And if somebody breaks that exclusion zone, you have to stop spraying and either get them out or do something different.
The first sentence up there doesn't have a noun in it, it just says establishes application exclusion zones based on distance from the application equipment. What's the noun in that? Is that the top part, the application exclusion zones in outdoor production establishes application exclusion zones?
This revision of the worker protection standard establishes.
Okay.
That's legalese.
All right, I got it now.
Linda copied a lot of these right out of the Federal Register and what EPA said. This is your exclusion zone around different types of equipment. So if it's an aerial or an air blast application, you got 100 feet. And I don't care if it's your property or the neighbor's property, it's 100 feet. For anything else, it's 25 feet. But how many of you have a row that's within 25 feet of a highway? Yeah, a lot of us, right? If I want to be obstinate and screw with you today because I don't like the way you're doing this, I can go stand right there on the road. What can you do to me?
Spray you.
Spray me. You're wrong. Actually, the last guy you want to spray is the investigator.
No, organic or synthetic pesticide, doesn't matter.
Pesticide, I don't care.
Okay.
A lot of guys will tell me, all I spray is sulfur. It's like, so, it's pesticide. You can't let it get off your property. But, so how are you going to deal with those guys that they're not on your property, yet they're in the exclusion zone? You can't spray right there today.
And this has to do with when they're in their car too as well. Because the way I understood it was that if they're in their car, it's not a sealed container like sprayer, so it's considered the same as walking by.
I believe that's the way EPA is interpreting that, but we've got to get clarification on that and get more information on that out there, okay? Because on the other hand, if you are in your vehicle and drift comes blowing by, you're not exposed to that drift, your car is. And OSHA considers that. So we don't know what EPA really meant by this. That's some of the confusion. We'll get that in. Okay. So Linda put this, and I don't know if it's going to work. The red area is the exclusion zone for that applicator. Don't you wish you could spray that fast? Bingo, it's done, I think. So Grant Jackson in our office is the guy who's working worker protection the hardest. If you got a serious question that you need an answer for, he's my expert, okay? And he is bilingual. I don't know if he doesn't necessarily say he's bilingual, but he's doing Spanish trainings with Washington State Department of Agriculture, and so I call him bilingual. He speaks Spanish and understands, and so that works. So, any other questions on worker protection, other than what are we going to do?
Does any of that exclusion zone include areas of pesticide handling or getting to and from the field, or just when the sprayer's in operation?
The way I understand it, it's just when the sprayer's in operation. Okay? And I got a problem with it, because when I'm out doing an observation and watching you guys, or I'm helping and working, you know, I'm a handler, I'm out there, I'm trained, I know that stuff. I'm almost always within 25 feet of an applicator when I'm helped calibrate it. You can't not be. So how does that work? And EPA just goes, can't be within 25 feet. Well, if I'm helping calibrate an aircraft, well, an aircraft is easy to get 100 feet away, but air blast, I'm not gonna walk 100 feet away from it every time we need to turn the darn thing on. I don't have an answer yet. Matter of fact, Rose Ketchdorian, our lead registration specialist, is at EPA this week, and they're talking about some of this. So I'm hoping she's gonna come back with some decent answers.
My other question is, if we're trying to have a culture of safety, as we embrace the Food Modernization Safety Act, and as we have to deal with our worker protection tightening up, if we're have a culture of safety, are you going to provide common sense when you're out here enforcing the laws, or is it going to be right down to the letter and the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law?
Depends on who's common sense. How's that for you? We've always used what we call the investigator's prerogatives, and we look at stuff. What was your intent? How dangerous was it? Can we correct it before we, you know? So if you've made a minor little error and you figured out how to correct it, or we're talking about how you're going to correct it and you're going to correct it, we're going to try to work with you and fix that. Because what's our objective? I don't have a quota that says I've got to have this many violations every year. Although EPA would love if that's the way they counted beans, they just want to count beans. The objective is, can we get you guys compliant with the laws so that everything you're doing is as safe as we can make it, and the crops you're producing are ready to go to market, and they're as safe as they can be. Okay? So there's a lot of give and take. There's times when, yeah, I could cite a guy, and we just say, where are we going to go with that? It's not worth it. You know, and later on we'll talk about enforcement actions. But you know, the normal first-time violation for something that's just something that you made an accident about, it's called a notice of violation. It's a letter that says, hey, you broke the law, don't do it again, go forth and sin no more, okay? Second time around, if you do it again, we'll send you a civil penalty, and it's a letter that says, hey, you screwed up again, and by the way, you didn't learn the first time, so pay me a little bit of money. That violation starts, that first civil penalty typically starts at around $400 the first time. We're not talking huge bucks. I'm not going to get rich off of y'all. If you are willful and grossly negligent, you do something that you know is a violation, and to heck with it, we're going to do it anyway, I can cite you $10,000. And that's a pretty healthy, I've got to do a lot of work to do that. And almost every time, I'm going to court on a $10,000 fine. It's worth it to you. Well, the department's going to spend way more than $10,000 to prosecute. So the objective is not to cite you guys. The objective is, let's be right. Let's do it right. There's multi-legged stool that produces our crops. You guys, your suppliers, and then our regulatory and our governmental support, and we look at it as the Department of Ag is there to support you to do this. I'm the guy that's just got to keep the playing field as even as we can. Okay. Answer your question as close as I can get it. The legislature did a bunch of stuff to us last year. Thank goodness it was a short session this year in my book. One of them was in forestry aerial applications. They said you've got to leave a 60-foot buffer next to an inhabited dwelling or a school. Forestry is trying to get that put into their Forest Practices Act. And the big question is, what's an inhabited dwelling? So they're still trying to determine that. And does anybody have timber that you're actively raising as a forest? All right, we won't go any deeper. Civil penalty change, they decided our hammer wasn't big enough. In the previously, we were $1,000, $2,000 total. Now we can go to $2,000 and $4,000. We're still working on that rule system. Does that mean that your lowest citation is going to go from 400 to 800? I don't think so. Okay, it's going to mean that if we've got somebody that's really not paying attention, but we can't quite get them under the gross negligence rules, the $10,000, then we'll go there with the 2,000. We'll see that. And that's the big one that you never want to be there. Because that's the one where you decided I'm going to break the law. The other thing they did was they gave me 4 additional investigators. That brought me up to 10. We did 562 cases last year with 6 investigators. So we had plenty to do. In addition to that, because of these extra people, we're getting 1 more case reviewer. And then this person is a citizen advocate. They're the person that's going to talk to a lot of people that need to complain and get something off their chest and ask questions, so that my investigators aren't tied up all the time. So hopefully that'll work out well.
Just curious, out of your 562 violations or investigations that you did, how many of them were gross negligent?
Gross negligence last year, I believe, was 1. That was a person who decided that he did not need to provide his employees with personal protective equipment, and went out and he's a commercial applicator and went out and did a whole bunch of stuff. So it's a very high standard. We don't want to be there. An early example of one, are you guys familiar with the zinc phosphide restrictions on grass seed? Okay, so on let's see, it was a fall, so it was, by the end of September, you can't be above ground. A particular grower decided that he had a field that was full of voles. He was taking it out, but he decided he wanted to spread zinc phosphide bait before he took it out. So on like the 15th of September, or of October, he spread bait broadcast across the field. I got a call from the neighbor and said, how come he can do it and I can't? Well, the answer is, he can't. So I went out, found out, yep, he did it. Well, I was trying to knock the bulls down before I worked the field up. Next day, he had his son go out and work the ground up. He worked the crop under and planted something else in it. But he did it knowing. And I asked him, I said, so have you got the 24C? He said, yeah. He reached up on the dashboard of his pickup and handed me the 24C. I said, what part of the end of September don't you understand? He said, well, it was worth it to me. He did it knowing. Okay? That's a gross negligence type of thing. And that all came about from the onion debacle we had back in about 2006, where some onion growers, Treasure Valley, applied Furadan to their onions, knowing that it was not labeled, it was never going to be labeled. And they just turned around and said, well, you know what? After we fined them their couple $1,000s that year, they said, tell me how much it's going to be next year, because it was worth it. Onion Growers Association went to the legislature and said, we got to change this. So, anyway, that's where that went to. Definition of a person. Now, this was one of my hallelujah, we got it. It's stupid. We had a case where a county roadside applied product, overrate, killed a whole bunch of plants along the roadside that were not theirs, that was off of their right of way. And the department could not cite the county because the county's not a person. The definition of a person up to that point was us being a people person or a partnership, all the legal entities that are outside of government. Government was not a person. And our statute says a person may not do this. So when it came down to the county, our lawyer looked at it and says, you can't cite them. I could cite the applicator, which we did, but I couldn't cite the county. And the county was the responsible party. So they fixed that. So now it's any public body here in this statute, and that's all the local governments all the way up to the state. So I can cite my own department if I need to, which we have in years past, and the federal government. So they all got it. Okay. I was happy with it.
Railroads are still okay then.
They never have been.
That's right.
They have always been subject. They are subject to my rules.
They are.
Yes, yes, and we deal with them all the time.
So how do they keep a buffer?
They got really good stuff that leaches a long ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It depends on what products they're using. But I tell you what, railroads are a pain in the neck to deal with. You guys probably know that. Everybody's got one that's a neighbor. Those in the public utilities, they're all always fun to deal with. And then aerial applicators are now required to have a specific aerial application license. It won't affect most of us.
What do you mean by specific? You mean to come over my place specifically, or to come over my area, or in my area by county?
If they're going, if you were going to make pesticide applications via aircraft, commercially, or even privately, one, you gotta have your pesticide license, and two, now, you have to also have an aerial applicator's pesticide license. They got to carry two licenses. And the reason is, with the concern about drift and misapplications, we need people in the aircraft to know what the heck they're doing. And in years past, it's been, you know, any of us could have applied for it, because as you're applying, renewing your license, you check the box, aerial, then you got it. Then we had people that weren't even pilots, had an aerial applicator's license. Or they checked the box and they were aerial applicators. So this is all here. The big thing is they've got to pass a test, and they have to show that they've got 50 hours of application experience from the air. So,
How do you get there?
well, luckily, all of the aerial guys that we deal with here in the valley, they've all been very reputable for years. But, you know, so think about it. Before you send an employee out in a sprayer to go out and spray your crop, what do? You make them do all sorts of stuff, maybe apply some fertilizer. Guess what? That's what these guys have been doing for years. You know, they'll apply fertilizer for a couple seasons before they even let them get into the aircraft that's got the spray boom on it and put some water in it to go see if they can spray that. And once they get some of that, then they'll start talking about what they need to do ready. All right, enough of that. Certification and training. If we didn't do enough to you with the worker protection standard, EPA's decided that you're not getting enough training. So they want to change it to make some significant increases. You're going to have categories on your license, a 3-year certification period instead of our current 5. They want 50% of your hours in the last 18 months, all this kind of stuff. Don't get excited yet. They've been holding hearings on this. Every state in the union that has a recertification program said, this is stupid, it's going to cost us too much money to revamp. We're already probably exceeding those training requirements. However, there are a few states in the union that don't have any, so those are probably the ones that they're targeting. So we'll see where that goes. This would be a big one. Immediate communication between a non-certified applicator. So some of your employees that may be making an application that requires a license that you as a private applicator can supervise, right? You would have to have immediate communication with them. I don't know how that's going to work.
Maybe I missed it. What's RUPs?
Restricted use products. So in the private, on the farm, if you've got an employee that needs to apply a general use product, Roundup, Prowl, whatever, you need a license. Does anybody on the farm need a license? No. For general use products, no. General use products, no. General use products can be applied without a license on the farm. An employee of the farm is the farm. So you don't have to have a license.
Have to be trained?
They have to be trained for worker protection standard, absolutely. HAZCOM, all that good stuff, but you don't have to have the private applicator's license. However, then, if you get a restricted use product, diazinon, Lorsban, Rely, then, say,
Is Rely restricted use?
I may be wrong. It used to be, it may not be anymore. So, okay, so if it's not, but if it's got big red RUP across the top of it, somebody on the farm has got to have a private license, right? And that person supervises all the employees. And that's the guy you're going to hold responsible for a misapplication by one of your employees. Okay, enough about that. Metaldehydes. Did you guys see slug baits go away for some of your berry crops in the last few years? They found that even though metaldehyde's been around for ages and ages and ages, they hadn't set tolerances, they didn't have the research done. So they pulled a bunch of labels back, I think it was in 2013, and they're starting to add them back in. When you buy metaldehyde bait, just make sure that the crop you're going to put it on is on that particular bag, because there's some of them won't be. And that's kind of where it breaks it down. Anybody use pyrophos? Yeah, most of us. They're thinking about removing the tolerances, just pulling them from all crops, which means you can't use it.
Do you
So-
know any timing on that? When?
They don't have a specific date. They are currently taking, you can go to this website and it'll give you the information. I think they're taking comments. Well, they were taking comments until the 6th of January, so we'll see where it goes. Just be watching. More good news, right? Take another good one off the market. So Foxy Fur, which is closer, transform, expire, they pulled it in November, can't be sold or used. However, if you have some on hand, you can use it according to the directions, except if it's an SLN. Has anybody got any of that on hand? Good, we don't have to worry about it too much then. How about belt? We've been in my, I can't even say that, I haven't been around it enough. EPA is gonna pull that one. Bears appealing it. You can still buy it, sell it, and use it. If right now, watch for things, because that one's gonna be fluid. If EPA turns down Bears appeal or the court, then I don't know what they're gonna do. Is that one you guys are using?
No.
No? Okay.
I
Say again?
found an old bag of DDT.
You know, it's funny, we had an old army can that was DDT, sitting on a shelf. It was, you know, we got a bunch of all that kind of stuff sitting around there. We were looking at it one day, dang thing was full. It was sealed. Like, so, it's DDT. It's amazing how much of that stuff's out there still. Website. We did put a complaint form on the website. You can go to ODA web, pesticides page, come up with a complaint form and fill it out and send it. Guess who it comes to? And we'll come see you. This has not aided in getting a whole lot more complaints that we've seen. But one thing that we're starting to do is if we get a person calling us and they want to complain, we send them this complaint form either electronically or in paper, and we can't require that they fill it out, but we're really pushing them to make them fill it out, put something in writing, so that they're a little bit more involved and they have to take ownership of this complaint, because, you know, it's really easy to pick up the phone and so-and-so's doing this and I don't like it, and, you know, it's a complaint. Now, if they gotta do it in writing, they gotta think about it. I don't know if it's gonna make a lot of difference, but the other thing that we had people doing is sometime down the road after we've completed the investigation, they changed their complaint. Then they went to the newspaper or something, well, they didn't do that because I told them this. No, it's not what you told me. You can change your license address online now. That's a big deal, because if you don't keep your address up to date, it goes away, your renewal notice comes out, guess what, doesn't show up. Then next year, guess who's talking to you? Because sometime we're gonna realize that your license expired, and we're saying, we still farm him, let's go see what he's doing. Everybody getting one of these? The bulletin? Check your address on the website then. If you've got a private applicator license or a commercial, you should be getting this. The next one should be coming out in about a month. Lots of stuff.
Could be the address on your license it's going to?
Yeah. It's the address that we have on file for your license.
So just go snail mail post office or email?
Snail mail.
Oh, I've seen it.
Check your address, because it should be there. If you don't see one by the end of next month, call us.
I get my hours and that's an indication that I haven't seen the bullet.
That one would have been last October, I think. During the economic downturn, they said, we don't have money for this, so they cut it. And we sent it out electronically a few times and realized that 99% of the people that were supposed to be getting it weren't getting it, so they just quit that. Well, last year, we finally got permission to start putting it out hard copy again. So that was the first edition, and the second one will be coming out here shortly. It's actually pretty useful. So, EPA's got the pollinator protection stuff on the mind. They are going through comment periods on neonics, imidacloprid's first one. That period ends on March 15th. So if you use that product and you feel it's really critical that we have it, make a comment. And Linda loves this slide. It's the elephant in the room, and he ain't near big enough because it's talking about that. There are some 5,000 or 6,000 estimated growers in the state, and it is a huge deal for me. I've got 5 cases this year so far on marijuana, and it's mostly adulterated products coming out off the retail stores. So we're making the rules up as we go, because are there any products that you know of out there on the marketplace that has marijuana on the label like the standard crop? Legislature told us that marijuana is a crop.
Label is the law.
Treat it like a crop. I said, okay, I'm pretty black and white, I'm easy. They can't spray it. That ain't gonna work. Really? Okay. So we actually did go through, and Linda White was involved in that, and several others. They looked at every pesticide that we have registered, looking for any one of them that did not require a tolerance for a crop. And then they looked at those labels to decide if it was written squishy enough that marijuana would fit. So if it didn't require a tolerance and it could be used in a greenhouse, guess what? Marijuana grows in a greenhouse most of the time. So we said, okay, this one may be okay. It's mostly 25B, the exempt from registration products. So we've got a few of them out there for the guys now, but it's interesting. The fun part is, I got a call from a laboratory because they were testing the marijuana before it went out. It's medical marijuana, they wanted to test it, and it came up hot for abamectin. Well, abamectin requires tolerance. It doesn't have marijuana on the label. It's not, I mean, no way. The growers who submitted these samples to this lab came back and said, your lab screwed up. I did not apply that stuff. And the laboratory owner, he was the one calling me, he said, I believe them. These are good, honest, hard-working folks. They're trying. So he went back and he checked his process. It wasn't me. There was abamectin in those samples. So he interviewed every one of them. What do you use on your crop? You mean everything you put, to include water. And the only thing besides water that was common was one product called Guardian. It's a 25, it's exempt from registration. It's citric acid, lemon oil mix, and it kills mites. And it kills mites good. So he tested it. Well, guess what? It's got abamectin in it. No wonder it kills mites so good. It's a really good, it had some cinnamon oil in it. So it's really good stuff. So he called me and he said, dude, we got a problem. We went out and bought some off the market. Sure enough, it is. I'm sitting in an office trying to figure out my next step, and I get this phone call, and it's this guy asking about registration for his product. Turns out it's the owner of this company. And I'm saying, well, we got a problem. And he says, what's the problem? We're only adding 2 milliliters per gallon of product. I said, did I hear you right? He goes, yeah, what's the problem? It's not going to show up. I said, well, yeah, it did. So we're going through that. That's the kind of thing that's going on. So imagine putting a product on your crop that you think's good, and it's got something else in it. Good times. And then we had industrial hemp, and the legislature said, yeah, they can grow industrial hemp, and everybody said, you know, that's what they're going to do. They're going to make rope or clothes out of it, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. No. same backyard growers are growing 10 plants and they're using it to extract the CBDs, not THC, but the CBDs. So none of the rules that they built for hemp worked because it was supposed to be open field production. I'll tell you what, you see these gray hairs? I wasn't gray before we got marijuana.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Marijuana? Why are they so willing to kind of backdoor all these pesticides from marijuana, but they squeeze the rest of it so time under
Plead the fifth.
5-year studies and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, we
Yeah.
gotta, if we're borderline on for clover or clover grown for seed, we're gonna get pinched, but these guys get all these chemicals just
Yep.
handed over to them.
Now, if they, and recreational marijuana has to be tested, and they have a suite of products they have to test for, which includes 99.9% of the things that they would ever use, to include some that aren't even on the market anymore. And if they come up with it, then that product can't go to market. So there is a little bit of a difference, but it's all political decisions at this point.
But I guess what's the political side of it? I mean, who's pushing to tell you to say these guys should get all the
Legislature.
legislation?
Yep. They're the ones that said, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. So, yeah. Do we like exactly where we are? Nope, because it's not right. It's not an even playing field. Your suppliers have spent millions upon millions of dollars to get every product you have labeled for every one of your crops in order to get tolerances and all that. And we don't have that yet. Can I say that the products that they're going to use in marijuana are safe? Nope. Because nobody knows what burn a pesticide is going to do when you inhale it. So, yeah, the best answer is I can't say much about it, really. We're where we are. There is a cannabis website if you need some entertainment. There's my product that really kills mites really well. It's time. So I'm going to just go through. And his contact information, my contact information, call us anytime. If you got a question on a label or something, call me. I'd much rather take the time before you make a mistake than after. So hopefully all of our experiences shall be like this, as opposed to when I have to have my black hat on. Thank you.
That was great, Mike, thanks a lot. Joe, are you here? Yes. Joe, you're saying you have to get back early?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah, I'll wait here the whole bunch. Thanks.
Okay,
I
thanks.
do have to be right after I talk. I have to
Okay.
walk to North Lab and do some work, and then head over to the television to one of the grades.
Okay.
I may make it, I may not make it.
We should have lunch for everybody. We've got about 68 people here. There's supposed to be 70 lunches. So if some of you walk-ins, you can kind of linger toward the back, just in case. But I think we've got enough lunches for everybody. It's about one. So next hour, we'll be back here at 1 for Joe. You don't want to be late.